Good afternoon, everyone. My name is 𝗦𝗲𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀. I'm here from NTT Data. It's such an absolute pleasure to be here at Microsoft Ignite, surrounded by so many intellectuals who are shaping the future of technology, cloud, and AI. Today, I would like to share how NTT Data and Microsoft are working together to help clients unlock the full potential of AI through innovation and partnership. Let me get started with a brief intro about my organization. NTT Data is a 30+ billion global innovator, shaping the future of digital and AI transformations. As a trusted technology partner for the 75% of the Fortune Global 100, our mission is simple: to help organizations not just optimize, but reimagine their businesses for long-term success, leveraging technology and disruptive innovations. With presence in over 50+ countries, we offer end-to-end consulting, industry solutions, data and AI, complete technology lifecycle from strategy to operations. We continuously invest in research and development, over $3.6 billion a year, to ensure our clients and partners stay ahead of the curve. One of our greatest strengths lies in our people, as reflected through Global Top Employer Choice Award. And what sets us apart from others is the power of our partner ecosystem. We seamlessly work with established business partners and cutting-edge startups, always led with a belief that true change happens through collaboration. One such example of this collaboration is strategic partner alliance with Microsoft. This partnership is to drive innovation with particular focus around generative AI solutions and to strengthen both organizations' positions as global technology leaders. This alliance isn't just about technology. It's about shaping the future of cloud, security, and AI across worldwide, leveraging combined strength, expertise, and resources of Microsoft and NTT Data. In 2025, out of 4,096 nominations across 100+ countries, NTT Data is recognized with Microsoft's System Integrator Emerging Growth Top Champion Award, demonstrating our excellence in innovation and implementing advanced cloud and AI solutions. In addition to that, we are also awarded with 3 more Partner of Year awards: Converged Communications Partner of the Year Award for excellence in converged communications, Germany Partner of the Year Award for demonstrating outstanding performance in the Germany market, Portugal Partner of the Year Award for the 2nd consecutive year, reflecting our exceptional performance in that region. We are also declared finalists in the following areas: AI innovation, manufacturing, SAP migration, and sustainability. At NTT Data, we are proud, truly proud, to be recognized as a trusted advisor for implementing Microsoft 7 Cloud in the European market. This isn't just another certification. It's about the powerful validation on our technical depth, proven experience, and consistent ability to deliver results using Microsoft Cloud. Our partnership with Microsoft runs so deep, built on trust and shared purpose. Today, this partnership is reflected through 50+ advanced specializations and multiple solution partner designations across Azure and its related technologies. Together, all these specializations and partnership designations demonstrates our expertise to support clients throughout the cloud and AI transformation journey, from modernizing applications to building advanced AI solutions. Together, NTT Data and Microsoft are leveraging emerging technologies to deliver meaningful outcomes through Agentic AI. To bring all this to life, I would like to now hand over to Geoff Newman, who is going to lead the discussion on how Newell brands scaling agentic AI across its organization. Thank you.
Thanks, Amilesh. Appreciate it. Okay, so joined here today by Kim Allison, the Director of IT Infrastructure at Newell Brands. Many of you may not be aware of Newell Brands, but I can promise you, all of you have heard of some of the brands that they carry. Sharpie pens, Papermate, Parker, Crock-Pot, Rubbermaid, Yankee Candle. There's literally dozens of them that are household names around the world. Newell's a very old company. It was founded in 1903. It's about 24,000 people globally employed right now at Newell, and it's about an $8.3 billion business. What we're going to be talking about today and asking Kim some questions around is a project that got kicked off with a meeting with one of our client executives, Mark Brown, and Dan Gustafson, the CIO for Newell Brands, based in Atlanta. That meeting took place very late in May, and by September 22nd, we had a minimal viable product built and in use at Newell. So we're going to walk through a little bit of that story here today. Kim, we'll kick it off. If you could tell us a little bit about Project Flux, the name of this project for the MVP, and just a little bit of the genesis, how it was initiated.
Yeah, as you said, some conversations with our leadership. One of the things, our CEO is very passionate about AI, and so early on we started thinking about how we could reimagine our IT processes in an AI-forward way. So that was another little piece of the puzzle. We were looking to obviously have some optimization in our costs and contracts. And then also we really wanted to, just as an IT organization, get started with AI, right? We feel strongly that it's part of our responsibility to be ahead of the curve from a technology perspective to support our organization. And so all of those things kind of converged into Project Flux, which had a very, very short timeline, as you described. We called it Project Flux because the word denotes transformation and kind of flow back and forth, and also a little bit of a nod to the Back to the Future movies, for anyone old enough to remember those, the flux capacitor and the idea that we might have to go backwards to go forward. So had a little fun with the name and off we went.
That's great, that's great. What can you talk about with the technologies that were used to meet this pretty aggressive timeline?
Yeah, that obviously was foremost on our mind, and so we really needed to, or decided to, look at the low-code way of getting started. And so right now we have our database in Dataverse. It fits very natively, and ultimately decided to go with that. We have Copilot Studio for a number of different agents. We have an email agent that has some predictive capabilities. We have a Teams agent for our end users, a couple of different knowledge agents that support our end users as well as our IT community. And then we use Power Automate for some workflows and kind of handling communications. And then finally Power Apps for some user interface, so some IT support pages to be able to fulfill tickets and so forth.
Terrific. Switching gears a little bit, can we talk about the people and what the impact was on some of your team members and staff?
Yeah, again, the timeline, this was not a planned project, right? It was not on anyone's bingo card for this year to do this. And the timeline was quite a surprise for people. But honestly, once everyone got, kind of over the shock of it and jumped in and did what they do best and kind of got started figuring out what we needed, what was the most essential, and just did a great job. There were lots of late nights and weekends and all of that, but did a great job with that. We had a couple of other challenges besides the obvious timeline, one of which was the technology pivot. Really, our team didn't have the skills, right, on the Power Platform. And so that's where our relationship with NTT really came in, and they were able to support us through that. And then secondly was just getting our heads around AI from a real practical standpoint. What do the agents do? How do they work? When do we use them? When do we choose that over some other kind of technology? And so really we're kind of continuing to work through those. I think, the challenges for this project have been steep, but we're real excited now that we don't have that timeline over us and what we really can build together. So we're excited.
Great. Can we talk a little bit about the process for the MVP and kind of some lessons learned? It wasn't really, from point A to point B, was it? It was, there was some variances to what were used for technologies and such, but love to learn more about just, from your perspective, what that was like.
Yeah, a lot of different choices. We had to look at the project. Again, I keep talking about the timeline, but that drove a lot of the choices. And so we had to be very selective about what we did. As you mentioned, the technology, right? We had a couple of different choices of database and went through several iterations of that. I think we made 3 different choices, but ultimately decided we're doing the right thing, and it's okay because we're learning. We're not going to get everything right the first time. And so we made some changes. I think also, we had to be very strategic about where we chose to insert AI. We went into the project with very mature processes and very stable workflows that we were able to recreate, and then be very selective about where we put AI, where we would get the most value, because that's all we really had time for. Ultimately, I think that was one of the benefits, though, is that we could use what we had and we could just focus on where were we going to get the most value from AI. Today, I think it's easy to get caught up in it as a shiny object, and we want to use it everywhere for everything, and it's really not necessary and not necessarily the best outcome. So we were able to sort of accidentally fall upon that as an approach, and I think we'll continue with it as we go forward.
Okay. Going back to the partnerships, what was the impact of having the strategic partners? I mean, I think you've referred to it as, like a 3-legged stool that that was created by the partnerships. And can you talk a little bit about what going through this process was like with your partners?
Yeah, it was great that we really had, again, so we had NTT helping us from a technology and a skills gap, if you will, right? So helping us with the Power Platform, and helping us to leverage your capabilities. We also were able to leverage you guys from an AI leadership standpoint, right, helping to guide us. And then we also had Microsoft technology strategists, right, helping us with the solution guidance, as well as a number of technology issues that we ran into along the way. And so I really think it was the synergy of all 3 teams and the collaboration between the 3 that made the project so successful.
Great. What can you tell us about the return on investment, efficiencies? What did you get from the MVP? And bearing in mind we're 2 months into production now. So what did you see coming out of that MVP?
Right. Yeah. Again, so the MVP is minimum viable product, right? It was just the basics, just the foundation. We are looking at, from a tangible perspective, we can see definitely a return or a savings, right? We're at about a 45% savings on our spend in this space, which we feel good about. We've got a business plan that we're continuing to monitor, and we'll monitor carefully as we begin to add, new capabilities and features and functionality, and trying to keep control of those costs. But that business plan is holding at this point. I think almost as important was the intangible benefits that we got just in terms of the experience, the learnings that we've gotten through this project that we will be able to impart and share with the rest of the organization as they begin their AI journeys is just going to be immeasurable and invaluable.
Well, let's talk about that a little bit. So we're into, as I said, we're into the production version of this now. What are the expectations as you run through the rest of the production version?
Yeah, we're going to continue, as we said, we focused on our must-haves, what was the most important, what was the most critical, and we've built a strong foundation now. And then we can start looking at fast followers and, nice-to-haves. I think we've talked about, we have a few different agents in place very strategically. I think the next most obvious thing is to add more and different agents. But one of the things I really think is important that I want to focus on is the telemetry, the observability, the performance of the agents, really understanding, are we getting the value, where are we getting the value, before we just run and add a bunch more. So that's what I really want to focus on first, and we'll be working on in the months to come.
Terrific. This was built using NTT Data's Agentic AI factory model. Now, as you're looking at the rest of the business, as you guys are moving through the production version of this, where do you see this impacting other areas of the business?
Yeah, again, it's really our ability of what we've learned and what we've come to understand over the months. We have the Azure environment built out now, the platform in place for other teams that want to kind of jump on the bandwagon, if you will. We have a governance model. It's evolving, but we're learning what we need to have in place to govern this in our organization. We have lots of different parts of our business, from HR to marketing and finance and others, that really want to begin leveraging AI, and we will be able to impart those learnings, really hopefully to help them accelerate their process and their journey. So as to coin a phrase, right, like you can't learn to drive in a parked car, so we had to really jump in and get started, and it's been a great experience.
Well, we really appreciate you spending some time with us today. I think the partnership that to me was unique in this experience was how each of the partners really had to trust each other. That some of these pivots look like they could have been delays. But having a partner like Microsoft that brought technology strategists to the table and were able to assist, and we're very careful about how they pitch these to us, that these things are going to make this go faster, it's going to look better in the long run. How NTT Data and Newell Brands had to work together because things did change so quickly. It was hard just to scope this out at the beginning. It's hard to do. It's always hard to do. Hurry up, and we're two big companies. Let's just move quickly through, the various paperwork that has to be done. So, experience couldn't have been any better with your team. We really appreciate everything that you guys brought, and there were some tense times, and everyone, stayed really calm and cool and collected.
Exactly.
So
Yours as well. Much. Everyone was really worked together and got it done. So it was great.
Thanks. You very much, Kim. Next up, Charlie Doubek, if you don't mind, Charlie. Charlie is going to walk us through a little bit more about the Agentic AI Factory and what we're doing at NTT.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you, Geoff. Thank you, Kim. So what I wanted to dive into is, how do you tackle a project like this? How do you look at something when a leadership team has an ambition and execute that with your partner and execute that with Microsoft? And what I'm going to walk you through today is the process and how we tackle that, and hopefully it will be beneficial to you. So to start things off, really, when it comes to Agentic AI services, we launched a brand new division in March. And the idea of this division was to be able to launch autonomous and subautonomous models for customers, but not just to build the models, but to actually operate the models and maintain the models. We felt that Agentic AI was a true step in a direction where you have real-time running models that need the observation and the quality and the security behind them to make sure they're going to do their job and make sure they're doing what they're supposed to do. So to do this, you need a few different elements. We launched this service in March, and we used the basis of this service on the Microsoft stack. So we're using things like Copilot Studio, Power Platform, Dataverse, AI Foundry. And to actually take all the different components, you have to have a Microsoft practice as well. So shortly after we launched Agentic AI services, we launched our global Microsoft practice. And what this allowed us to do is go into the elements like Dataverse, go into Fabric, go into the wider Copilot Studio capabilities, leverage all those different tools, but to be able to have the observability, the staff, and the skills to pull this all together. The big difference with Agentic AI and generative AI is that Agentic AI has hands and feet and things that the agents could do. And to empower those agents, you have to have all the right technology skills, but you also have to have the right process internally to onboard those agents. So one of the things that we had to do is fill in a lot of gaps. If you look at in the press, there was a lot of talk around projects that weren't going forward. And the reason those projects weren't going forward in our mind was that they weren't addressing things like in an agentic AI way. They were addressing things like in a software as a service model. And what I mean by that is when you launch a model to your organization and put it into production, you need to think about the ongoing needs of that model and how it's going to work in the environment and how you onboard new models. And once you have this foundation, you can then really expand and open up new use cases. So what we have to do is fill the technology gaps. We also have to help with the CISO teams to make sure that all the policies and understanding of how agentic AI works is all within the security team. But also to be able to look at the organization and leverage any other automation that you might have. Because in some cases, agents can trigger automation that you've already built. So when you come to approach this with a customer like Newell Brands, you have to take a look at any idea can pop up, because agentic AI is so broad. So what we had to do is create a platform and product that can take in ideas and make them production-ready AI agents. And so what we launched is our Agentic AI Factory. Our Agentic AI Factory is meant to be a combination of technical skills, tools, and Microsoft partnership. And what this allows us to do is work with the engineering teams to make sure we have the right tools in place, the right roadmap, but also to be able to add value even if the agents do not exist in our environment. So a great example, and looking at what Kim was speaking to, those agents are sitting in Newell's environment. We're actually just monitoring and managing the agents to make sure they're working, and working hand in hand with their IT team on optimizing those models. Because AI agents can learn, they can change, they get upgrades, and you have to constantly make sure you're looking after them. And also the LLMs that power them, because you want to make sure there's no LLM drift, you want to make sure there's been no change in the model. So what we've done is created a process where we have an idea that pops into our Agentic AI Factory, and we take that idea and we first determine, will this be a low-code or pro-code problem? Because pro-code we were able to deliver quite quickly, but low-code can be used for more complex, high-concept AI down the road. But it also determines how long it's going to take to develop the model. Most importantly, it helps us with the cost. So you may have seen with the keynote, they have Agent 365 now, which is going to make it a lot easier to actually price out agentic experiences. But it's important to identify what will those costs be and simulate the actual usage of the agents. Also, what's important is to be able to have a test group that can test the data and determine how much training you need to give the models before you put them into full production. So in the case of Newell Brands, we knew the outcome was we wanted to automate certain processes. And so we didn't know how many agents it would take to do that. So quickly, by working with Newell Brands, we were able to build a number of agents that did different tasks that could achieve that goal. And to build those agents, we had to really work closely with the teams on their processes, what are their challenges, what are their security requirements, and have an amazing relationship with the Microsoft engineering teams to be able to implement the models and also anticipate what's coming around. But one of the things that we really look at, and you'll see a lot of this at Ignite, I'm sure you've seen many of it, is observation and governance is incredibly important with agentics. And all of the new things that you're seeing come out with observation, observability, the ability to look at agent fleets and looking at an entire group of agents and monitoring them with evaluation models and using things like red teaming for compliance, things like that, that allows you to truly scale autonomous and semi-autonomous models. So you can have lots of agents working in the environment, but actually telling your IT team, your security team, your compliance team that these agents are working within the right parameters. When we deployed this factory, we started with a lot of pro-code or low-code use cases. So let's take an example. This is a low-code agent. This particular agent's built on Copilot Studio and Power Platform. So within this agent construct, you want to be able to make sure you have human in the loop. Human in the loop is incredibly important for any level of autonomous agent. But also, you need to have an integration layer with the different products and platforms that agent needs to use. So the good thing is Microsoft has lots of connectors, and you don't have to custom develop those connectors. So by deploying models like this, you can quickly provide agents that can do jobs very quickly. Like we did with Newell, we only had 3 months to actually deploy the agents. But once you've actually got agents working, and the board sees that, and the whole organization sees that, you can then work into something more complex. This is the era that we're in right now with multi-agent models. We are one of Microsoft's launch partner for the agent framework. Agent framework was the evolution of AutoGen and semantic kernel. This particular service allows us to add observation, but also allows us to add frameworks or a street that the agents can work on to tackle more complex processes. So with our customers, we're looking at claims processes, fraud detection, credit card checks, entire processes where you have agents doing individual tasks so you can increase the overall accuracy of the model. So the way we design our agentic AI factories is we make them ready-made to be able to intake all these different types of user scenarios. But every time we build models for customers, we can then reuse those models for other customers so we can quicken the time to market, but also learn from that, learn from the engineering, work with the Microsoft team so we can quickly deploy to other customers. Now that multi-agent models have protocols like agent-to-agent protocol and MCP for tools, you can now interact with different agents in different systems as well. So you can work with other partners, you can work with systems in different clouds, and some of the announcements that are coming this week are just opening this door incredibly wide for us. What we can do now is add SLAs to agents, which makes our relationship with our customers very, very intimate, because we not only build the model, but we have accountability for the model. So if this model is going to do a job, we are guaranteeing that it's going to do that job within certain parameters. And the only way you can do that is observability. The only way you can do that is to be able to add things like red teaming agents, evaluation models, being able to audit the models at any time, and actually see them work in real time. We are seeing this explode all over the world. I think I've met over 700 to 800 different IT leaders in the past year, so my air miles have definitely gone up. And one of the things that I've learned is that it's very easy to start testing within IT, because you're laying the foundations. You heard Kim mention this. You're laying the foundations of the governance model so that you can adopt AI agents across your business. And once you have that model, it's very easy to get future models approved, but it's also easy to start thinking about high concept. Many of our customers moved on to horizontal models. We did that ourselves within NTT, HR, facilities, legal, customer support. And this allows you to continue to test on your own environment, really stretch the ability of the agents, see what you can do with them, but also to increase the customer service within your organization. You heard Kim mention the user experience is amazing when you talk to a model that is easy to speak to. If you don't have to fill out a form, you can speak your native language, you can send an email. This makes everything more accessible. It doesn't just have to be IT. That could be HR, it could be marketing, it could be facilities. But now we're moving into the realm of domain-specific agentic solutions. And with domain-specific agentic solutions, you can start handling a lot more high-concept processes that can impact your bottom line, but also can help you steer away from custom software development, which can be quite expensive. So what we're seeing here, especially with this age this year of observability, governance, and security, we're now able to see the full promise of agentic AI, having all these safeguards in place and having these models in place. So it's really the combination of all these things that allowed us to be successful, and it's the vision that companies like Newell have in changing the way their organization can work and perceive the way that people interact with IT and elsewhere. So I think what we'd like to do is see what kind of questions you have for us, maybe get some feedback or anything you want to ask while we're on stage. So maybe Joy, we could go into a bit of a Q&A. We got a microphone. We got a microphone? Oh, excellent. Oh, you're welcome to come up too, Kim. You might have. Does anyone have any questions about the project? Or
Hi, yeah.
Yes.
Hi, yeah, sorry for very basic questions. So
No
in
worries.
a regulated, highly regulated industries like financial or healthcare, how we can utilize agentic AI? Because there are a lot of memes on internet that not everything needs agentic AI, but there is a constant pressure from everybody that, oh, you should use agentic AI. So how we can identify which use cases are best candidate for agentic AI and how to go about it?
Very, very good question. So I'm working with a customer in Amsterdam, a financial institution, and they have established they call it an AI guild, and you might call them AI boards or other names. But many of the financial institutions, I was in Singapore talking to a Japanese multinational bank as well, where they've established this board to look at all the different models that you might be deploying in the organization. And when it comes to compliance, that can be very domain specific. And what we do at NTT Data is we have the domain specific expertise in our consulting teams, so we can look at the different regulatory requirements we have. But then we have Microsoft behind us. And some of the things that we've done with the AI Foundry team is we've created red teaming agents. So does everyone know what a red teaming agent is? Would it help to go over that? Everyone does? No, okay. Okay. So a red teaming agent is an agent that you can configure that looks for breaches in security or breaches in compliance or breaches in policy. So for example, the AI Act in EMEA, you can configure red teaming agents to look for different breaches and to shut down models. For red teaming, you can also add domain-specific compliance needs, where you're looking at data coming in and out, and also what's being discussed with the public and what's being discussed internally. So one of the things that's been announced at Ignite this week is the ability to go into a control plane in AI Foundry, and you can actually add red teaming agents as an evaluation process. So for example, you could have a fleet of maybe 10 low-code agents and maybe 10 pro-code agents, and you can have all these different red teaming agents actually auditing them at once. So your human resources can then look at those audits and see if those agents are performing, but also give the assurance to your compliance team that you are being compliant with the models. And so what we've had to do with some of the banks we've worked with and some of the insurance companies we've worked with is to actually explain to them what a red teaming agent is and actually configure them and open them up for auditing so that they can be assured that we're following the right process. And this has helped us make incredible inroads in the financial sector. One of the biggest projects I have right now is in South Africa with a bank. We're creating an autonomous network. So what we're doing is we're taking a network and we're adding AI agents that are actually looking after the different pieces of equipment and being able to restart them and troubleshoot them. And we're doing that as a starting phase with that bank to then move forward into more complex use cases. So there's ways of doing it from a compliance perspective. But what I like about Microsoft options is you can go to Azure Go Local now. You can go to hybrid. You can also open up policy management and use products like Fabric to keep certain security elements away from your model. So that way your model's not ingesting data you don't want it to. Very good question. I love that question. Any other questions from the audience? Yes, please.
Hi, yeah. I've got two questions actually.
Yes.
One question, you were referring to models.
Yeah.
Are these LLMs or some other models? Because you mentioned LLMs separately from saying, okay, we are training models.
Yes.
Which models are you talking about?
Yes. So everything that we've done for Newell has an LLM element to it, and that's an OpenAI element within Copilot Studio. We are doing future agents in AI Foundry where we might need to change models, but right now they're OpenAI. The automation that we have that's not LLM run, you know, there's a certain like Power Platform automation that we're working. We don't necessarily call them AI agents because they don't have that LLM model powering them.
All right, okay, thank you. And another question, so LLMs as foundation LLMs, they hallucinate. How do you deal, so whatever agent is producing, there is an element of stochasticity, so you don't know how accurate the result is. And when coming to the more complex agentic patterns, how do you deal with that? How do you make agents reliable?
Yeah, very good question. I love that question as well. So what we did with Newell is we were quite lucky that we had all the IT data from the past few years, and we were able to train the model prior to going to production. So the model had access in two different ways. One, it had access to a Dataverse database, and that Dataverse database allowed it to write new knowledge base for the agent. But then we had 3 years of data, and we fed that data into the model before production, so there was a short-term and long-term memory to it, so that way it was giving accurate responses. Then we tested that model. We first trained it, we tested it, and then put it into a POC, and then released it to the public. And what I might add, maybe, I'm not sure if you want to add on how that's gone for you so far.
Yeah, we've been observing measuring the accuracy of it, and it's pretty good and growing and getting better as we get more experience. What we did have to do, because some of our data was a little bit imbalanced, is we had to add some additional synthetic data or make some default decisions, like when in doubt, send it to the service desk or whatever you need to do, right? But have a default position so that if it wasn't sure, the confidence wasn't high enough, it had a path.
Yeah. Absolutely, absolutely. And right now you can actually, use LLMs to create synthetic data, and Microsoft has also launched some great stuff this week that allows you to do that right within AI Foundry. You can create synthetic data on top of your model. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
Can you just clarify about training a model? So you were not fine-tuning an LLM, you were training some other model.
Yes. Yes. So within the model for each agent, you have the LLM component, but you also have the different connections that has. So by calling that a model, that's the whole conglomerate. We were training an LLM for Newell Brands, yes.
Okay, so were you fine-tuning an LLM or?
Yes, we did have to do some fine-tuning. We were doing kind of, we were giving it access to the data from the previous years. We did have to do some fine-tuning to increase the accuracy using AI Foundry.
Okay, all right, yeah. Thank you, that answers.
Yeah. Very good question, thank you. Next question.
So I have a different perspective from a legal point of view. So you mentioned autonomous, agentic. So what about separation of duties? And when you have agentic AI and human elements, how are you handling that from a legal perspective? Whether state or geographical from Europe or EU. There's a lot of legal around agentic AI that prohibits it. So how
Yeah.
are you guys approaching that?
Yeah, definitely. I think when it comes to projects like this one, there is quite a lot of work between our two legal teams and Microsoft around the different types of policies that you're using, but also, like you mentioned, legal. Within a couple of customer deployments I have, we have redlining agents, and those agents are going through different documents and so on and so forth and redlining them so that the legal team don't have to review the entire documents, for example. And with that, we do lend our legal team directly to our customers because we had to do this internally. We have over 1,000 agents at NTT that are currently working in different levels of autonomous. And our legal team had to work very closely with different countries like Germany, with the Workers' Council. We had to work with the AI Act as well, working directly with Microsoft. So as consultants, we can help through the process and obviously bring in Microsoft expertise, but it really depends on where you're operating and what your domain is as well, as you might have regulatory needs that not all businesses have. But again, it does take some consultation to get there.
How do you handle the testing of AI agents, especially as the spectrum goes from low to high on the agent itself?
It really depends on kind of the level of importance that agent is having. So a lot of organizations right now are creating their own agents internally using things like 𝗦𝗽𝗲𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀, which are less impact agents. So the QA process is quite short for things like this. For what we did with Newell Brands, there was a very kind of elongated QA process before we went to production. And I'm not sure, actually, Kim, do you want to add to that, or do you want me to?
Well, just, obviously we observed and we had our sort of previous testing scripts and so forth, right? So again, we had those mature processes, so it was a matter of just understanding and being able to measure it back to the expected results, and figuring out when we didn't get that, what might have to be different, or
yeah. I think we started at 40%, I think, accuracy, and we got it up to 60, I think. Yeah.
And right now, at least what I'm measuring, we're at about 72%, I think, accuracy. So it's, we're doing some different things to try to improve that and to understand it, right?
Absolutely. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, I mean, especially, I get the AI agent testing, but the Gen AI, right? Especially with the bias testing, you put a Gen AI agent out to your customers or in front of your help desk that services your customers.
Yeah.
How do you handle things like bias testing or hallucinations? Yes, a lot of the models do it themselves, but you have fed it your data, right? So how do you validate some of the biases and hallucinations? Have you encountered anything like that?
So right now it's very human-based. So I have teams within each factory that are auditing the models, especially when it comes to customer service, where there's a lot higher impacts to those models. So they could log into Azure App Insights or log into where our agent flows are and actually audit what the agents are doing and grab, tag different things. Once we have analyzers on there and evaluators on there as well, they can pick up things for us. And things like voice sometimes can be difficult because if you're doing voice to text, you have to have an audit on the back end of that. But I think that with the improvements that we're seeing this week and the ability to add more evaluators to different agents and different fleets, we'll be able to make that more autonomous. But right now, it's very people-based. So we're checking in. We're making sure they're doing the right thing. We're also double-checking all the connectors into the agents. So things like contact centers, you might have voice coming in. You might have like SMS. You might have like chat and things like that. And also looking at the failure rate and latency behind that as well. I think latency was a big thing that we looked at because they have 28,000 staff asking IT whatever questions that they want. And just to kind of give you an idea of the experience is you send an email, you send a chat, you can just type in what you want. You don't have to fill out any forms or anything like that. And the agent's actually taking that data and then coming back with different options for you. So within that, we do audit those interactions to make sure that the model's providing the right level of service for the customer. Any other questions? Very good questions. Yes, go ahead. Yeah.
Yes, we have some time. I'd like to ask about the SLA.
Yes.
It looks like it would be a really great milestone to be able to put SLA on top of for agents. Can you please elaborate which parameters can be there? So
yes.
what SLA would mean?
Yes, yes, definitely. So when we started working with Newell, it was an SLO, and it was more around the uptime, and having availability of the agents. As you've probably seen in the news, sometimes, there are outages that you can actually have, and it's very important to engineer your model so there is a backup if there is an outage, for example. So our SLOs were built around the quality, the overall availability of the agent, and also how many tasks that are processed. Now that we're moving into SLAs, now that the observation is a lot clearer, we can actually start looking at outcomes. Not true XLAs, but more outcome-based models. So for example, I'm working with a customer right now that is in the airlines industry, and we're about into 40 agents or so. Each agents have individual KPIs, and so when you log into our service portal, you can see each agent that is in our management, and next to it, how many tasks it's completed. And there'll be a contract behind that with SLAs on the right end of it. But what I'd like to do is expand that further to actual like cost savings outcomes, QA score outcomes, things like that. But right now it's all around availability of the agent and the level of accuracy that it can provide. We were using semantic kernel before that to do that, and we were also using a few different tools like Azure App Insights. Now that we've launched Agent Framework, we're using just Agent Framework. So you can actually go to our service portal and see all the AI agents we have, even those that are not Microsoft.
I want that.
Good question.
How are you working with the user adoption and making sure the employees actually use it correctly?
That might be a good question for you, Kim, or do you want me to take that one?
Can you repeat one more time? I'm sorry.
The adoption around the agents.
Yeah, so we have, as you said, sort of 3 different methods that our users can reach us as an IT organization, right? So we have the phone, they can still call and talk to a human being. They can enter a Teams chat and access the agent that way, or use email. And right now we're seeing actually about a pretty even split. There is a little bit of more going to the voice because I think people are just still uncertain with it. But we have kind of a team working on engagement and trying to help users through any early challenges and to be able to use that. So right now it's kind of a neck and neck race.
That makes complete sense. And what I'm seeing out there as well is, and I always make this comparison because my daughter uses ChatGPT and she's 9 years old. I live in London, and she basically talks to it and it does different things for her. She doesn't use Google search. She doesn't use Bing. She uses that and basically asks it things. And when she goes into the workforce, she's not going to necessarily understand using like a portal or a form. You know what I mean? There's always going to be this assistant that you talk to. And so what we're finding is with Agentic AI, if you change a process where the assistance is the front end of that process, then suddenly the adoption automatically comes in, right? Because it's the new way to work. Right now, when you want to ask IT something, you just talk to an agent. There's no other way to look at it. And obviously we connect with platforms like ServiceNow, we connect with platforms like SAP and all those other great platforms, and also enable that agent to interact with them. So I think with Agentics, you can change a behavior probably a bit more prescriptively than you could with things like Copilot, which were productivity gains.
I think especially as you're seeing CSAT scores go up.
Yeah.
On when agents are at the very beginning of the process as well. Has been, I think, a unique experience. Maybe people didn't expect to have happen.
Yeah, absolutely. We've got 2 minutes for another question if anyone has one. Okay.
All right.
Well, thank you very much. Thanks for making the time during this busy conference. Thanks for the support, and appreciate the support from Microsoft. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kim.
Thanks.